welcome. You're watching Money, Money, Money. I'm Sumaira Abdi. Well, women today are doing well in almost every sphere of life. They're earning more, they're taking active financial decisions and contributing not just to their homes and families, but also to society. In our episode today, our focus remains on helping them manage their money even better. Joining us in this endeavor is Harshvardhan Roongta of Roongta Securities, and we also have with us three lovely ladies like you've seen who want to pick Harshvardhan's brains today. Mansi Vakil, Shraddha Agarwal and Pritul Surana join in. Hi ladies, thanks much for joining in, and Harshvardhan, always a pleasure to have you. But before I get to your expert take, I want to begin by asking the ladies what they do and why they want to be here. What about you?
I'm currently single, living in Mumbai by myself because I have lost my parents and I don't have any siblings either. So I'm living by myself and running my own business, which is doing cultural programs for expats in Mumbai.
Okay, Shraddha, what about you?
I conduct baking workshops from home, and it has been it's been a hobby which I have turned into my profession, which I'm enjoying thoroughly.
Wow, so I'm going to be visiting you soon for sure. But what about you, Pritul? What do you do?
I'm a homemaker and I have 2 kids, and my husband is into diamond business.
Okay, so I'm actually conflicted whether I should visit Shraddha first or Pritul. But anyway, so let's also ask them, Harshvardhan, about what their financial challenges would be. Mansi, is there anything in particular that worries you about being a single woman in Mumbai?
Yes, first of all, the nature of my business itself, although it's running very well, these programs that I organize can be done only 8 months in a year. So the rest of the 4 months, I'm often worried about how I will, meet the expenses. And certainly it's like all on me. I have to manage all the payments, etc. So that certainly bothers me.
Okay, so you have basically seasonal income. There are
Yes.
4 months in a year when you're not earning. So what does someone like her do?
So I've had a look at her portfolio. There are 2 elements. One is the income that she generates by herself, by an active profession that she is pursuing. The other is there is a considerable amount of equity investments which she has inherited from her parents. I would recommend if she could liquidate a part of her equity portfolios and park that amount into a tax-free bond or any other debt instrument which gives you a fixed interest every month. This will enable her to basically get an income, a secured income, even in those periods when she does not have business coming in those 4 months of the year.
Okay, so basically regularize the flow of income, of money coming in. But Shraddha, what about you? You said you conduct baking classes at home, so you're also earning, and your household expenses are also being met by your husband as well. What are the immediate challenges that you face?
My husband takes care of the daily household expenses. Only I don't know what to do with my money. I need suggestions like how could I utilize my money.
Wow, you're the first woman I think who wants a suggestion on how to utilize the money, but nevertheless we're here to help you. Harshvardhan, what's the advice for her?
Well, Shraddha, I would say that the income that you generate can be divided into 3 parts. The first one being there is some kind of money you will have to keep in reserve because you will require it to put it back into your business in the form of an input cost, the raw materials that you require to continue conducting your baking classes. The second element would be that you need to start investing some part of it because you're already generating income by yourself. There is some portion that you should also park away, so that helps you in long term. And the third portion is what you do out of your money. Why do you earn? Because you really wish to use that money for your own self. You are entitled to have an experience called guilt-free spending. Allocate a part for those kind of products that you would like to spoil yourself with.
Well, that's what we always say on this show. You want to earn better, you want to invest better, but at the end of the day you also want to be spending better. But Pritul, what about you? What are the problems that you face?
Since my husband travels for most part of the month, so there's always some money so I take care of basically all the financial aspects of the house. So what are the things that I should be taking care of with that money?
If your husband is traveling, he is into business and he's traveling almost half of the month. All the other aspects of the house, like investing the money, taking care of all the utility bills to be paid on time, the credit cards. Well, what I would suggest, we inherently have felt that usually such families keep large amount of money at home as contingency, like in case it is required to be spent on certain things. One element that can be addressed is that you park this money into a liquid fund. In the name of the woman, in the name of the lady. So in case she requires that money, she can redeem it from the liquid fund, get the money in the next day into a bank account. The second element is to ensure that all the payments or the utility bills are being made on time. What you could do, make a separate email account only for your utility bills, for credit card bills. It could be as simple as bills.surana@gmail.com. So you have only those utility bills, anything that both of you need to commonly access into that email account, and passwords can be obviously shared with both of you. So you will not miss deadlines.
Well, that's actually a very useful tip, Harshvardhan. But so far we've been talking specifics. Is there any advice in general that women need to be, perhaps looking out for a red flag or something? How can they secure their finances better?
Well, Sumera, if we look at the cases that we have here with us today, 2 of them are homemakers with the primary source of income coming in through their husband who's into active employment. One thing that all women should keep in mind, specifically a profile like this, would be to ensure the continuity of income in case of an untimely demise of the husband. Now that's a first step of financial planning. If we may just ask a question, have you even wondered if your husband is no more because of an unfortunate event, how does that income come into your house, and how do you manage the day-to-day affairs of your family? So that is first step that the housewife or the homemaker or the lady should first ensure and push their husbands into adequately covering themselves, or at least asking a question, how do I make sure that the house runs in your absence? So that is the first step. The second would be to, both of you are together going to grow old. The household expenses are going to remain there. You have to make sure that you have income even post his retirement. So if he has not proactively taken those steps to plan for retirement, you need to push and sit together along with them and to define that whether you have made those kind of investments that are required to sustain us beyond your income. So these are 2 basic elements which you need to start with, and of course there is a big list that you can then it's a never ending list in that case.
Well, all right, we've got the basics at least in place. So what we'll do now is take a very quick break. We'll come back in a bit, and on the other side, we'll continue talking about how you can plan your finances better. Stay with us. We'll be back in a bit. Welcome back. You're watching Money, Money, Money. Today our topic is financial planning for women. Harshvardhan Roongta is our expert for the day, and also with us are Mansi Vakil, Shraddha Agarwal and Pritul Surana. So far, Harshvardhan, we've been discussing about the kind of immediate challenges that these women have faced. But is financial planning for women very different from financial planning in general?
Well, there are certain aspects, of course, which are specific to genders. Now, when you come to women, obviously there is a element of security. There is an element of emotional, financial securities. So there are some elements which you need to keep in mind. There is, as I mentioned for Shraddha, there has to be some element of even using your money on yourself, which we call as guilt-free spending, which we call spoiling yourself. Money is money, what it does. So you cannot have money and then suffer all throughout your life. Yeah. In case of Mansi, we spoke about a situation where she has money lying in equities. She has a challenge meeting her day-to-day expenses. So, money is what money does. You will not always have just one element in your financial portfolio and ignore the other. There has to be a balance of all. So when women specifically, yes, there is some attachment to gold. There is some sense of, ownership that, women want in gold. So yes, you can go ahead. If we normally allocated 10% for men, we say that as an investment in your portfolio, the allocation should be 10%. In women, you can go slightly overboard and also use and invest gold and buy jewelry, which does not come into that 10%.
Yeah, so you're going to win yourself a lot of women admirers after the show for sure, because you're giving all the advice that we want to hear. But in your experience, do you think women investors are more prudent as compared to, investors who are men?
Well, a small segment, yes. I would not say in generally, or my experience in general has been that women are better investors. I do not think so. These days we see a lot of change. We see people and women specifically coming up and coming forward, taking charge of their finances and willing to do that more proactively than what they've ever done. So I believe that's a very good trend, and hopefully it continues.
Well, certainly we on Money, Money, Money always hope that women become more financially independent, and we hope that you will be taking a lot more decisions yourself. But Mansi, you have a question, I believe?
Yes, certainly. There is one very big fear that I have, and I was hoping Harsh could probably give me some tips for that. The thing is, in fact, I recently saw one of your episodes where you spoke about disability and how to manage finances in that situation. So similarly for me, I'm single, and I often worry that if I fall sick, I'm hospitalized or I'm unable to sign documents myself. Now I may have a large amount of money lying in the bank in the form of investments, etc. But how will it, come in use for me at the time when I'm actually sick or unable to, sign and take decisions myself?
In her case, I would recommend that she makes a power of attorney. More specifically, in her case would be medical power of attorney. Now, you can divide this medical power of attorney into two elements. The first element is taking decision or giving an authorization to the hospital to conduct that particular surgery or the procedure upon you. So you can decide upon one person, you can shortlist one person whom you trust would be able to take a very prudent decision. You can authorize him in that power of attorney to sign on your behalf and give an approval to the hospital to carry on that procedure upon you.
Okay.
The other element would be the payment of hospital bills. Now, who's going to be able to make that payment? As she mentioned, she has money lying in her bank, in her investments. But who's going to make that payment to the hospital? Because without which the hospital will not conduct or start the procedure. In that case, also in the same medical power of attorney, you can mention and authorize one person that in case of a situation like this, he is authorized to go to the bank and his signatures henceforth will be valid for a specific period of time until you're in hospital.
Okay.
And the trigger, the power of attorney comes into force based upon a medical certificate from the hospital saying that you're incapacitated to take decisions on your own right now. So that could be a pre-requirement for the medical power of attorney to come into effect. So she could make a document like this and authorize a person and give the power to a person whom she can trust to exercise these rights.
Harsh, you said in a situation like death, what do we do? Suppose if the life insurance is taken care of, what else we need to insure ourselves against? Like what other challenges can we face?
See, now we've had this kind of a situation in a country like India. You understand there are certain laws which rule or which govern the inheritance in our country. It may be the Hindu Succession Act or the Shariat Act in case of Muslims. Otherwise, in general, the Indian Succession Act is applicable to all of us. Now, there are certain provisions within the law which may surprise you completely. You may feel, as in fact, all the women that we're talking about, all the homemakers, you must understand that there is a process for inheritance. As much as you think it's your first right over your or on your husband's property or anything that you jointly own, or your husband owns exclusively, you may think you're the first and natural legal heir to them. Well, there is some merit in that, yes, but there is a process. There are other legal heirs also. It is very important that you ensure that there is a will made. The husband makes a will. In that will, he will very clearly define how the assets are to be distributed in case he is no more. In which this is one document which will make sure that you are secured. There are no co-claimants into the property, and unnecessary litigation will lead into delay of getting the property. You may be entitled to the property, but if there is a dispute, it takes years for those property to come back in your hand. And in that interim period, it could be really painful for you if you have to manage the house and your children and all those things in that period. So having a will clearly define who are the people who are going to be entitled to the property of the husband and how does it get distributed in case of his untimely demise.
Well, so that was all you needed to know about how to manage your finances better. Shraddha, Mansi, Pritul, thanks very much for coming to our studios, and I hope that this has been informational for all of you. Harshvardhan, we request you to stay back a little bit longer. There's more stuff that needs to come on the show, but before we take a break, here's another quick tip. Did you know that the trigger option provided by various asset management companies ensures that investors are able to complete the sale or redemption of their mutual fund units smoothly and without any disruption? This means that you can actually define a specific event which may be related to time or value in advance, and when this event takes place, that trigger is activated. Do stay tuned. We'll come back in a bit. On the other side is our viewer call-in segment, Can I Afford It? Welcome back. You're watching Money, Money, Money. It's time now for Mythbusters. So let me hand it over to Manasvi Gilani.
Net asset value, or the NAV, the most misconceived financial term, and that's what we'll discuss today and clear some of the myths surrounding it. But before that, what exactly is an NAV? It is the total value of the shares held in your portfolio, including cash, minus the liabilities, and you divide that by the total number of outstanding units. And if you thought that the mutual fund with lower NAV is cheaper and better, then you need to know this, that the rise and fall in the funds of the net assets depends on how the scrip moves. The capital appreciation of any fund should be measured with the price movements of the underlying securities in the long run, and the existing NAV of the fund has no impact on the returns. Secondly, the funds you think that declare regular dividends are the good ones, then they need not necessarily be, because stock dividends and mutual fund dividends are completely different. The fact is that dividend is in fact extracted from the NAV of the scheme, and accordingly the NAV drops to the extent of dividend and the dividend distribution tax is paid. Lastly, if you thought large corpus funds always generate high returns, the fact is that some of the experts told me is that the fund with a very large corpus is in fact prone to inefficiencies. And this could be on account of several reasons like the market volatility, difficulty in managing a fund after a point, and investing in not so very well researched stocks, and this leads to not very positive returns. So NAV is the book value of the fund, and staying put in those schemes for a very long term is the wisest thing to do.
All right, Mansi, thanks so much for that. Now it's on to Can I Afford It? If you're looking for a bit of extravagance in your life, well, we're the people to call, and our expert will tell you if you can afford it or not. First up, Ravindra Pujari calls in from Navi Mumbai, and he wants to talk about a recurring expense today. Hi, Mr. Pujari, where are you looking to spend?
Yes. I have been taken a pension of about 45,000 rupees. I live in my own house and we have savings of 60 lakhs minus the house. Both myself and wife have health insurance and our monthly expenses are approximately 30,000. Since we have a lot of social commitment, especially my wife, I want to know if we can afford to hire a driver since it's becoming very difficult for me to drive health-wise.
All right, so how much do you think this driver is going to cost you, and how are you planning to pay for it?
A driver would cost about rupees 10,000. Then it will be coming out of my pension only.
All right, Harshvardhan, what do you think? Can we get Mr. Pujari the go-ahead?
Well, if you look at his cash flows, he has about 45,000 coming in as pension, some returns that he's generating on 60 lakhs of corpus that he has, against which there is a monthly expense of 30,000. I think we can give you an approval to go ahead and hire a driver. Because at this age, if you're not going to spend on your own comforts, there is no use of having that money lying around. Further, Mr. Pujari, I would like to give you another suggestion. There are certain companies which offer drivers on daily basis. So in case you do not require a driver for the entire 30 days of the month, you can hire drivers on daily basis, pay a charge of about 500 or 600 rupees a day, and hire them on the days which you require them instead of having the driver for entire 30 days. So you can, yes, go ahead, hire a driver or use an organization which gives you daily drivers.
All right, Mr. Pujari, all I can say is go ahead, live it up. Our next caller, Shubha Sriram, is on the line with us. She calls in from Hyderabad. Hi, Shubha, what is it that you're looking to spend on?
I earn about 95,000 a month and I contribute about 60,000 towards my savings and other expenses, and I have about 40 lakhs or so in the bank as personal savings, and about 4 to 5 lakhs of which I have kept in a savings account, and I also jointly hold a house also. But I was wondering, my question is that I was wondering if I could afford to buy a flat screen TV.
Well, it's something I've been wanting for a bit too as well. But how much do you think this TV is going to cost you, and how will you pay for it?
TV would cost, I think, 80,000 rupees. And I was intending to pay it from my savings account.
Harshvardhan, what do you think?
Well, if you look at the cash flows, again, they're pretty healthy. There is a reasonable income coming in, and the expenses are well within limits. There is sizable amount lying into the savings account, and so I believe, yes, you can go ahead and spend on that TV that you and your husband have been jointly wanting for a long time.
All right, congratulations, happy viewing. And finally, our last caller is Gaurav Joshi, who calls in from New Delhi. Hi Gaurav, how can we help you today?
My wife and I are both 32 years old, and we jointly earn about $1,80,000 a month. Our expenses are about 30,000 per month, plus we have a home loan EMI of around 40,000. We have savings of about 3.5 lakhs, which is primarily in mutual funds and a little bit in the savings account as well. We are now looking to buy a car. Do you think I can afford it?
All right, how much do you think this car will cost you, and how are you going to pay for it?
The car that we have in mind should cost roughly 6.5 lakhs, and we'll make a down payment of about 1.5 lakhs from our savings. And for the remainder, I plan on taking a car loan, and the EMI should be around 11,000.
What do you think, Harshvardhan? Can we give him the go-ahead?
Yes, well, against a monthly income of 1.8 lakhs, the expenses including the EMI for housing is about 70,000. So I believe there is sufficient liquidity that you have even within your current monthly income. The EMI, if we assume for the car, would be about 10 to 15,000 per month. So in spite of that burden, I believe, yes, you can go ahead and buy your car. Just make sure that you've got adequate investments also going along at the same time, because you do have the cash flows.
All right, Gaurav, happy driving. Harshvardhan, thanks so much for joining in today and for answering our viewers' queries. Viewers, do remember, if you want to write to us, you can email us on money@network18online.com. You can also find us on Twitter, write to CNBC TV-18 News and use the hashtag money. And don't forget, you can always log on to YouTube, where you can find this episode and all our previous shows. We'll wrap up now, but we'll see you again next week.